AI, and you also explained really well the different types of AI that's coming at us. And as we know, it's all very confusing. So I want to approach AI from the point of view of I call it AI for power, responsibility, and wisdom. So I come from the East, and I'm a hybrid. I grew up in a Catholic neighborhood in Sri Lanka, in a Buddhist home. So I've had many influences, and moved to Canada when I was 14 years old. So my worldview is essentially coming from all of these different experiences that I've had. So I look at technology from a point of view of the root causes of why we are where we are right now, in terms of the predicaments that we face right now. We have an existential crisis, and we seem to be speeding at, say, 60 kilometers an hour towards a cliff. But what AI seems to be doing is to kind of speed that up. We're going at 120 kilometers an hour at the cliff right now. And we seem to not have the power, all of us as citizens, as individuals, to stem that, because the power is concentrated among a few right now. So this is what we're seeing. So how do we deal with this situation? So this is what I want to address from a historical, from a spiritual, and and now there's neuroscience also to inform us of why we are thinking the way we are thinking, because there's technology appearing to us. So I'm going to kind of do a hodgepodge of looking at this, and also from a spiritual grounding through the practice that I also have in mindfulness. So the genial Margaret Atwood says the vampires are aristocrats and landowners with fancy outfits and capes, and Frankenstein monster is a creature of enlightenment. So I want to just go a little bit into the last 500 years of development, which has been Western-centric, European and North American-centric. But we know that history goes before that, for at least 5,000 years, we know from the civilizations that have been out there, and that history we know. But we also know that we've been around as Homo sapiens for 200,000 years, and we've risen and fallen. So I'm wondering whether we haven't learned those lessons of why we fell the last times before the sort of the known history of, say, 5,000 years. And I also look at this from an East and West point of view too, because there is a division between the East and West right now in our thinking processes, because of the way the world evolved after the colonization. And I'm an Anglicized Sri Lankan, and in Sri Lanka went through a horrible war, because us Anglicized Sri Lankans took over from the colonists and continued the same trajectory. So we had civil wars, we had insurgencies where people didn't have those opportunities just because they couldn't sing an Irish song. Irish are just smiling. I played rugby club. So we kind of took over the colonists left behind in Sri Lanka, India, those countries. But what also happened was, I started a solar energy business, which in Sri Lanka, which sold systems to rural people. That's when I really learned about a different culture, even within the country that I was born in terms of people from the land, people from the soil, and it's a completely different culture and a mindset. And it's aligned with the indigenous mindset here too. So this is what I want to sort of inquire into today. Can we come together, not to denigrate the Western cultures? We are enjoying the heat here, we enjoy all the nice things that we have, the food supply. I can eat an apple in the winter here. So all of those things are because of that trajectory. But can we see ourselves sort of going into a kind of a spiritual side of things to marry the East and the West and the indigenous philosophies together? Can we find some middle ground is what I'm inquiring about. And I believe we can, and that's why I'm presenting this. So I trust you can see this. So we have got ourselves into a bit of a mess, as you can see. If you are following the doomsday clock, which was established in 1947, we had 7 minutes because the nuclear race started then with the Cold War. And Then in 1991, we went up to 17 minutes when the USSR opened its, broke down the walls and created a unipolar world. We thought everything's going to be fine. But we also know that in 1963, with the Bay of Pigs invasion and the Cuban crisis, we went down to 2 minutes, and it was because the two people found their humanity in Khrushchev and Kennedy, decided that, through backroom channels that they discussed, and decided that they're gonna now, stop this battle, which was egged on by the hawks. And they thought that they'll destroy their beautiful nature that they were sitting in. Luckily, JFK was in Hyannisport and Khrushchev was in his dacha in the countryside. He thought that we're going to destroy all this now. And that's what saved us from that 2 minutes. So we went up to 17 minutes, but today we're 89 seconds to midnight. And we are in dire straits when you think about it right now. Even though we don't quite feel it as us as individuals, it was 90 seconds last year. It has gone down to 89 seconds. So it's not only nuclear, it's climate, it's pandemic threats, and all of that coming together has brought us down to this level of us annihilating ourselves. So are we going to kind of stand by and watch this? I don't know, and that's what we want to just look at. So I kind of tried to create this, and I couldn't find my son to help me with this. I kind of looked at this I'm also looking at the latest neuroscience that is coming from people like Jill Taylor, who is a Harvard neuroscientist who had a stroke. If you know her from My Stroke of Insight, and Ian McGilchrist, the Scottish neuroscientist, coming up with amazing thesis of the left and the right hemisphere, not from a pop psychology point of view of left is an accountant, the right is an artist. No, left and the right brain are separate, they attend to the same things differently. So the left hemisphere of the brain is quick, gets things done, grasps things because it's a survival mode, it's stuck on ideology, it's short-term thinking, takes shortcuts, it doesn't care about stepping over people, stepping on people to get the job done, objective-oriented. Whereas if you overcome and move over from the corpus callosum to the other side, to the right hemisphere will attend to the same thing in a different way. So it's really exciting to listen to this, and people like Jill Taylor and Ian McGilchrist talking about East and Western practices coming together to be able to transcend the left hemisphere of the brain, which is trapping us in a place of fear, because that's the narrative that's out there. And then the right hemisphere is to put things in context, get out and put things in perspective and realize, look, no, we have agency to act, we have still time to act. So the left is about power, it's utilitarian, it's about materialism. So what artificial intelligence does is, as we know, with wealth, it's compounding, right? And if you're gonna have an extra amount of money, we put it, and then we can compound it. And this is where the concentration of wealth has happened, as we know, and it has compounded. But with artificial intelligence, it's gonna be uber compounding. And the people who have money, and we know through the pandemic how the oligarchs and the business communities, the tech industries amassed a huge amount, like 30, 40, 50% more wealth was accumulated during that time alone. Whereas the small mom and pop shops, the high streets were all destroyed, and the wealth the gap just increased. So this is what AI can do if we don't have wisdom and responsibility in working with AI, and that's the left hemisphere. So right side is wisdom, values, as Paul also pointed out, and spirituality. It's a word that everybody is scared to even bring up. I work with organizations, business organizations. The moment I mention the word spirituality, they go into, we don't want to talk about that. I mean, we are spiritual human beings, so I just power my way through these organizations. and nobody has thrown me out. Even Department of Defense, they don't throw me out, because I say to them, I said, what does it mean to you, this word of spirituality which scares you so much? And then they say it's kind of miracle of life, purpose and meaning. So then I asked them, I said, do you think a lack of that is creating all the problems that you're facing right now? And then the penny drops. So it's how do we transcend the left hemisphere to get to the right hemisphere and become whole brain to really deal with our existential problems. So this is what I want to look at. So what has really happened right now is we have gone on this trajectory in the last 500 years, I would say, and more so in the last 150 years, technocrats, bureaucrats running the show and in the service of a few people who own the businesses, and we have created ourselves a wicked problem. And it is extremely difficult to solve, and it's complex and interconnected in nature. And we call it radical uncertainty, wicked problems. Now the business community, McKinsey calls it, what do you call it now? Permacrisis. And they're using words now and accepting the fact that because we have been on the notion that we can find perfect solutions. When Rex Tillerson was asked about climate change as the chairman of Exxon, he said we can engineer our way through our solutions. So everything's about engineering our way. Zero COVID, zero carbon. We know we can't, there's no way, as long as we live on this earth and there's entropy, there's no way we can find zero, right? So how do we find that middle ground? And that's our challenge. And John Verdon sadly is not here today, but this is a tribute to John. When we, John, Gabriela, and Paul and I, we have amazing conversations. And last week we were at Life of Pi, and we were so animated that we were wondering whether people would get up and leave. But so John said, truth is dead, long live honesty. And when you think about it right now, right? The truth is controlled by whoever has the power, whoever has the wealth. But honesty is a personal thing. We can still be honest to ourselves and then find that grounding at an individual level. Ethics are dead. Paul talked about ethics, the importance of AI ethics, but again, even ethics are manipulated by, or what is right and wrong is manipulated by the people who have the power. Right now with AI, whoever is now dictating that medium in terms of censoring people, we have seen that censorship coming on, and all of those things are what's creating now the whole ethical dilemmas that we're facing right now. But long live morality, because we do have a moral compass within us that we can work with. So that's what it's a personal responsibility then all of us individuals we need to come together with. So getting to the root causes, this is my own opinion of all this, right? So I look forward to a great conversation. So we know that the Great Separation sort of happened in the 1500s because we know that the church dominated the world, and when Galileo and Giordano Bruno got burnt at the stake in 1600 because they brought in scientific thought, and Galileo was put in prison in 1633. Copernicus was scared to even put out his thesis of the heliocentric universe. So we know that there was a battle between the scientists and the church happening in the West. And that then a truce, I believe, this is my own thinking from reading history. So people like Descartes and people like that separated and called it a truce with the church and said, look, let us go on this trajectory with the science and technology. You guys take care of the church and spirituality on this side, and we don't interfere with each other. And this is the world that we have come to right now. So we can develop technologies that can destroy us without thinking about the consequences, right? So we know the Bible is a compilation of various stories, various people contributed to it, but it's indisputable. But this is one of the things that in Genesis, King James Version, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over fish, the sea, over fowl of the air, and over cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon this earth. So imagine a scientist who is guided by this and saying, you know what? We have been given permission. So cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. So separated the mind and the body. So we have those two separate ways that we have gone through. And Bacon, who contributed so importantly to science, inventions exert gentle guidance over nature's course. They have the power to conquer and subdue her, to shake her to her foundations. So here is a separation of the mind and the body that we are now dealing with, which is creating, I believe, the predicaments, the existential crisis, because we are not coming together to figure this out. So here we are. The clock changed everything: conformity, uniformity, regimentation. So all of that informality, and then we put fences around land, and this is my land, and that's how the colonization. There's an amazing book called The Empire of Guns, which follows the evolution of the gun and colonization. And ironically, it was a Quaker from Birmingham called the Galton family, and used other Quaker businesses like Lloyd's Bank and Barclays Bank to perpetuate. And his justification when he was pulled up by the Quakers, fellow Quakers in Birmingham, was he was serving Great Britain, and then the consumerism starts from there. So it's about then creating from the early 1900s a consumerist culture, which is followed by this, so when we go to the root causes, when you see the history of this, we can then unravel it. So here's Ed Bernays, who is Sigmund Freud's nephew, who wrote a book called Propaganda. He set up office in Madison Avenue and worked with the likes of the Hearst family and Henry Lewis with Time magazine in the whole PR business and manipulation of organized habits and opinions, and was able to create public relations and advertising and a consumer economy based on that. And then on top of that, the legal license to operate. Now, nobody talks about this. The corporation was established by the VOC, the Dutch East India Company, then the British East India Company, and then it was continued. And really, for a company, the only responsibility they have is to make profit for the stockholders, right? And that's where it is at. And we take away those boundaries, the profit motive becomes greed, right? So we have to think about the folly of certainty, and that we have created on the left hemisphere that we need to now question. And this is the question that is being asked. Enlightenment, all the good things that came with it, but has it destroyed our morality? Created selfish individualism, cultural imperialism. So has meaning to life been taken away by that? And that's what we've seen in the last 20 years of social media. And we were warned, right? We were warned by people who built these systems about the military-industrial complex. And Joe Biden, before he left office, he said, today oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence. And in reality, really threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms. So they actually say something before they go out of office. So Gandhi came up with this whole notion of trusteeship. So a company like Tata, which now is a global company, is 66% owned by a trust. So the family does not have access to that. And that trust is what has done so much of philanthropy in India now globally to live Gandhi's value of trusteeship. So I believe that we need to think about how the East and the West can meet and find common ground. So for me, my basic foundational teaching was from the Buddhist teacher was life is suffering and unsatisfactory. Dukkha it was called. Life is uncertain and impermanent. Anatta it was, anicca is called. And there is no such thing called self, which has been difficult for me to realize, but it has been difficult. So just a couple of more slides, and I'll just finish up. So there's a practice that I'm presenting. I was taught the meditation practice. Basically, the meditation practice is about understanding my oneness with nature, because when I was taught to meditate, I was asked to see where that breath is coming from. It comes from the tree and the soil. Where does my breath go on? So that gave me unwavering assurance that I'm one with nature. And it's people like H.G. Wells and Rabindranath Tagore, which talked about how we can come together as the East and the West. And here we are. Maslow actually learned his craft in a Blackfoot community. It's about self-actualization, and then the critique on this is Abraham Maslow himself talked about it. Interpsychic individualist psychology without reference to other people and social conditions is not adequate, he said. So John Milton said, mind of its own. So we have the power of the mind to change things. So we can come together with the breath, connect the mind and the body. And people like Jill Bolte-Taylor, I spoke about her, and I really recommend this book, Whole Brain Living, where she talks about bringing these ancient processes together, bringing the left and the right hemisphere together to become whole brain, and to find that eternal force. So this is Ian McGilchrist. Left hemisphere is fear brain, right hemisphere is fearless, is what he says. I really invite you to follow him. He has a channel called Channel McGilchrist, where he has incredible presentations. So virtue and mindfulness, and the brain regulates itself, and this is materialism. We can change, we can find our way out of this, especially when we become whole brain. And this is Rudyard Kipling's work. And finally, one more slide.
Yeah, you have to.
Yes, and this is Thich Nhat Hanh talking about Mother Earth and our oneness with nature. And finally, I want to, Mo Gaudat is a former CEO of Google X, and this is what he says about AI. He said, instead of containing them and enslaving them, we should be aiming higher. We should aim not to need to contain them at all. Best way to raise wonderful children is to be a wonderful parent. So that's me. Sorry, I took a little longer than that, and I get very passionate about this. And thank you for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Lalith. Okay. Well,